Hey, Catherine,
Hey, Nick.
are you keeping it weird?
Am I keeping it weird? I'm always trying to keep it a little weird.
Well, you're in Austin, right? So you making sure you're keeping it weird?
Oh, yeah, I guess. I've just been in my hotel room working, but yeah.
Well, Austin's slogan is "Keep Austin Weird," so I'm just making sure you're down there following the rules.
Oh, right. Yeah, Portland says the same thing about itself. Keep Portland weird. So, yeah, you know me. I'm keeping it weird. I'm following the rules.
All right, good, good. You drinking any ranch water?
Um, is that like water from a ranch?
Yeah, quite literally. But it was also one of the drinks of the summer, last summer, 2023. So just tequila, lime, soda water, almost always Topo Chico,
Mhm.
and I don't know. It's basically a sports drink if you think about it.
Right, because it improves your athletic achievements. Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly.
Well well, I think it's about 90 degrees here today, so that actually does sound absolutely perfect, but I'll have to keep my eye out for some additive-free tequila.
Oh, okay. So now it's my turn to be confused.
Well, so the hot news in the tequila world is that some tequilas contain additives like glycerin or caramel color. Nothing that'll really hurt you, but it's against the spirit of the spirit, if you will, to add anything. And tequila is one of those beverages that, for whatever reason, has gotten the buzz of being like somehow healthy or natural in a way that apparently it really isn't in many cases.
Wow. Can't anything be what it seems anymore?
Yeah, and get this, Nick, at the hotel I'm staying at, the spa menu lists a tequila and agave massage. Now, it costs $150 more than a regular massage. So I looked at the fine print, and as far as I can tell, the only difference is that I think they just give you a shot of tequila at the start of the massage. And, they don't even say if it's a clean tequila, but I don't know either because I cannot afford to find out. Low spirits in wine and spirits as we lose another great wine publication. Pernod Ricard is getting out of Down Under. Tomato wine is. Wait, tomato wine? And wine isn't a democracy, according to the Sideways guy. All this and more on episode 153 of your favorite wine news podcast, The Four Top. I'm your host, Catherine Cole, and I am joined by Nick Toole, and Ruby Welkovich is performing this week in the theater.
So, our first news story marks the end of an era, or maybe the beginning of a different era, because a long lived, highly regarded wine publication has just announced it is unfortunately shutting down. Well, mostly shutting down.
Yeah, that's right. After 42 years in print. Nick, you're a baby in comparison to Wine and Spirits magazine.
I'm actually 43 in podcaster years, so I'm older. But seriously, though, publisher Joshua Green put out a pretty scathing letter from the editor a few days ago decrying what the world has become. Allow me to read an excerpt. Digital media and social media now support the travel perspectives of their communities, and in those silo communities, narratives matter more than facts. Many brand budgets are geared towards sharing those narratives.
Oh, yeah, that rings true in reference to politics, wine, and everything else. Anyway, 2024 has seen its share of media industry layoffs, and Wine and Spirits recently joined that unfortunate trend. Its editorial staff has reportedly been sacked, and it's not clear what the future holds. Green writes that we hope to announce future tastings to come. For now, we have no choice but to take it slow, work through our considerable debt, and see what might offer a sustainable journalistic wine endeavor in the future.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty grim. And it's kind of hard to see how they're going to turn this ship around. It does seem like success in today's media landscape requires samurai level expertise in technology and social media, that much like we have here at the Four Top. Uh,
Oh, yeah, we're samurais here.
I noticed quite a few references in Green's letter to journalistic standards, which I am all for, but it makes you wonder if no one's reading your publication. Are they doing you any good,
Yeah, sadly, we don't have access to their readership numbers, but currently Wine and Spirits only publishes 4 print editions a year. So it really has been on a long, slow decline.
Yeah, like I said, it seems, especially for wine publications to succeed, they need to offer a lot of services like tasting events and publicity vehicles for wineries. And they need to be, as I said, social media ninjas.
Yeah, I actually was chatting with my colleague Zach Jabal. He's over at Vine Pair, and I asked him if he wanted to weigh in on this. So here's Zach's hot take on this.
The interesting thing to me to dive into in this story and in what editor Joshua Green wrote in his announcement about the restructuring is that the model that Wine and Spirits had operated under for decades no longer seemed viable. And, I think there's maybe some reality to that. I think the kind of Consumer Reports-esque reviews that Wine and Spirits was founded upon and seems to have kind of leaned into were maybe just less relevant for readers and for consumers. I think there are a lot of other sources of information about wines in particular and spirits as well, and products for people to drink. And there are a lot of ways of accessing that information. There's a lot of ways of learning about product, learning about brands. And one of those ways is directly from the brands themselves in a way that was much less true even 10 years ago. Social media has brought brands directly in contact with their consumers and potential consumers in a way that previously had to be intermediated. And a lot of that was paid advertising. Some of it was feature stories and other kinds of review content that publications like Wine and Spirits really thrived on. And the truth is that may just be less valuable to the drinking public these days. And I also think another question here, and one that I would pose to Green and to others, is, what was their readership like? What was their demographic base? They've been doing it for 40 years. If a lot of their loyal customers have been people who started with them in the first years, the first decade, there are other challenges. There's broader media environment challenges that Green mentions in this letter. But I think fundamentally there's an interesting kind of story here where, in the same way that we talk about with wine and with wine producers and brands, can they afford to keep doing the same thing over and over again in the face of a changing market, changing demand, and all that stuff? And I think the answer for a lot of them is no. And I think similarly, the answer for a publication like Wine and Spirits might be that change and evolution are kind of necessary if you want to stay in business. And if you are very committed to a structure and a style and an approach that worked for you for a long time, well, it may be that structure and style and approach just don't resonate anymore. And that may be, in the end, all there is to the story.
And yeah, just to add to Zach's thoughts, according to the Pew Research Center, half of all Americans get their news from social media at least some of the time. But get this, according to Pew, Nick, nearly a quarter of Americans get their news from podcasts.
Well, you can count me as part of that quarter and a lot of my friends and family. So I'm hoping that's a good sign for the Ford Top. But I am very sorry to see Wine and Spirits go, and I'm especially sorry for the staff that has been laid off. According to Green's letter, the publication will maintain an online presence, so definitely keep an eye out for that and hope for the best.
So, Nick, have you heard of tomato wine?
No, but I'm afraid you're going to tell me about it whether I want to hear about it or not.
Well, wait a sec, Nick. You're from Maine. You're in Maine, where I do remember enjoying some delicious blueberry wines when I was in college. So doesn't Maine rock the fruit wine scene?
You are right. We do have blueberry wine, which I'm personally not a huge fan of, but some people love it. We've also got things like rosehip wine I've had, and I've had rhubarb wine. So, there's a lot going on up here. And to share everyone's favorite gotcha food fact, tomatoes are fruits. They do have seeds. So,
yeah, they're totally fruits. That's why I put a sliced tomato on my granola every morning.
Yeah. Wait, what? Okay. Weird. All right.
I jest.
Anyway, this article came across our radar this week about tomato wines. And, there are some serious, important wine things to report on this week. But we thought, maybe tomato wine is one of those serious, important things. So we clicked on it.
Yeah, we had to know. So this was a piece by Sylvia Tomzak for Tasting Table, and it's entitled, curiously, Why Tomato Wine Looks Nothing Like You Would Expect. Okay, Sylvia, I get that it doesn't look like a V8, but my question is, how does it taste?
I'm thinking the same thing. So apparently there's only one commercial tomato wine producer in the world that we're aware of. So Pascal Miche runs a winery called Omerto near Quebec City in Canada. And he inherited his Belgian grandfather's vin de tomate recipe, which apparently came about when he turned his excess tomato crop into wine during the First World War.
I do know people who end up canning their extra tomatoes, but this sounds like a lot more fun. I mean, who needs preservation when you've got fermentation?
Ah, I love that. So, according to Reddit, which is just a hub of journalistic integrity, speaking of, homemade tomato wine is a thing that people do. And it sounds like it tastes kind of like a bland white wine as long as it's nice and cold. Actually, let me rephrase that. It is 16% alcohol and has relatively low natural acidity. So I'm guessing you are going to want to get that fully iced down.
Hey, it sounds like the perfect summer drink.
Very true. And the perfect plan B for wine growers facing climate change crises. Of course, tomatoes require a lot of water. So yeah, maybe not.
And they're annuals, they're not perennials. That's a lot of annual planting and staking. I don't know, probably not worth the trouble to mass produce tomato wine.
And no, this sounds more like a homegrown thing. So, with summer approaching, we want to know if you, listeners, have turned your summer garden bumper crops into wine. So, if you make tomato wine or really any other non-grape wine, drop us a line. We'd love to hear about it.
And if you make rhubarb wine, please ship me some because that sounds delicious.
I'll see if I can find any up here in the great state of Maine. Okay, so before we dive into our third news item, I want to note that this story contains a lot of names of things that start with the letter A. We've got the Australian Financial Review, we've got Accolade, we've got Australian Wine Holdco Limited, and we've got Australian Vintage. So pay close attention, or don't. Just let the dulcet tones of our voices wash over you.
Right, because you know it all starts with an A, Nick. ASMR.
Okay, never again.
But anyway, this story comes to us from the drinks business by way of first A name here, Australian Financial Review. Apparently, wine and spirits behemoth Pernod Ricard is looking to offload its wine interests in Australia to, got another A name here, Accolade. For some pretty big bucks, the sale could be in the ballpark of $500 million.
That's chump change. There's single wineries that sell for that much. I remember actually back in, I think it was November, Sonoma-Cutrer sold for $400 million. But Australia is having a pretty tough go of it lately, and a big part of that has to do with the trade war with China that just ended after 3 years. China is a very big, important market for Australian wine, so that was a very long 3 years.
Yeah, and I know that wine sales have been really slow in China as well recently. So Accolade, which owns big brands like Hardee's and Banrock Station, seems ready to take quite a lot on. If these reports are true, not only would they take on Pernod Ricard's brands, but they're also in talks about merging with Australia's third largest portfolio of wine brands, Australian Vintage.
And to add to that, Accolade was itself just pulled from the edges of insolvency by a venture capital firm in London called Australian Wine Holdco Limited. And now they're buying and merging. That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but as we discuss frequently on the Foretop, the wine industry is experiencing a contraction right now. And with these big acquisitions and mergers, these large national and multinational corporations are kind of reflecting on a macro scale what's happening to family wineries on the micro scale. I can't believe I just said that because I feel like I know nothing about the economy. But here we go. That's what journalism's all about, just reading about things and learning about them. But getting back to Pernod Ricard, I'm going to show you, Nick, what their stock performance looks like if you pull up the last 2 years. Check it out.
I feel like we're on Freakonomics radio right now. All right. So, okay. So I'm looking at this stock. Oh, man. Yeah, that looks pretty bad. That looks like you're coming down a pretty steep mountain. There's a lot of scary red lines here.
Yeah, so the last couple of years, Pernod Ricard stock is a bummer. But now let's look at Pernod Ricard stock price over the past 10 years. Check this out.
Oh, okay. That looks like a much more manageable hill to climb. And climb, it's mostly up. So it looks like it peaked during and after the pandemic and then took a dip. And it looks like I'm drawing the line with my finger here. It's still below 2018 levels, but it's on the upswing. Okay, so it's dropping its Australia portfolio in an effort to lean up, and I guess Accolade's looking to bulk out?
Yeah, it seems like these large wine conglomerates are just kind of cleaning house or putting additions onto their homes. I don't really
Yes.
my metaphor is failing here, but it does seem to be working. And in fact, if I were a betting person, I might just buy Pernod Ricard stock right now.
Really? I mean, as we just discussed, the ticker is slightly up recently, but that still seems a little risky.
Well, yeah, the stock is volatile and they are dumping assets in Australia. But just as they're doing that, Pernod Ricard is buying up 280 hectares. That's close to 700 acres of vineyards in Provence. And you know what my economic mantra is? Rosé all day. That's all.
Ugh.
That's all you need to know. You know what? Move over, Jerome Powell. I should really be running the Federal Reserve with all this financial wisdom I have. Rosé all day.
Oh, yeah. Welcome, Jerome Powell. So, Catherine, I just watched The Holdovers, and I am standing Paul Giamatti pretty hard right now, and I think it's time for a Sideways rewatch. But short of that, Drinks Business ran an interview with the author of the novel that Sideways was based on, and that's Rex Pickett.
Yeah, this interview comes to us from James Evison at the Drinks Business, and Rex is working on yet another Sideways novel. The overall interview offers some good insights into the movie Sideways, which all of us in the wine industry who are old enough to remember definitely remember, because that movie created what was known as the Sideways effect. After that movie came out, there was this huge, explosive growth in Pinot Noir consumption.
If anybody orders Merlot, I'm leaving. I am not drinking any fucking Merlot!
But that was then, this is now, and a couple decades later, Pickett has an interesting take on Gen Z and millennials drinking wine.
Hi, problem child here. Sorry, younger
I
millennial.
often say that about you, Nick.
Yeah, I know. Not buying expensive wine, choosing beer more often. As listeners know, roughly only a quarter of younger drinkers choose wine over other alcoholic beverages, which is a steep drop-off from baby boomers. You know who we never talk about is Gen X, by the way. But anyway.
I'm happy to represent, but yeah.
So Pickett is attributing this to an overabundance of subpar, cheap wine and a lack of understanding of the sort of art of wine, of the importance of vintage. To quote the article, he talks about wine's place in the hierarchy of consumer purchasing and how that needs to be discussed. And some of those things ring true to me, and some of it gives me the douche chills. And that is a physical condition. I am not calling Rex a douche by any means.
Okay, Nick. Yeah, kid slang never ceases to perplex me. Anyway, as an aside, I should mention that I know Rex. I helped him with a pilot for a cable series that unfortunately never made it to the screen, and I also sent him a bunch of notes that he used in his second novel, Vertical. Working with him a little bit during that time, I found that he was very bright and had a really unusual way of seeing things. And like I said, he has been something of a prophet for the wine industry over the years. So, it's interesting to read his thoughts. He's definitely in this interview leaning into the importance of high quality wine. He notes that you can't get a good Pinot Noir these days for less than $30 a bottle. He thinks winemakers should focus on the luxury aspect of wine, and he likens wine to literature and film. And he even says something that the industry often only says to themselves in whispers. He says, wine is not a democracy. Oof.
Oof.
Ooh.
I mean, all right, soapbox time. Again, speaking as a member of the problem younger generation, I absolutely get his point. And some nice stuff is nice because it took a huge amount of work and skill and artistry, and a lot of amazing wine is like that and worth its price. And those stories definitely sell. I want to know how dirty my winemaker got. But
so do
literal
I.
dirt. We're talking about literal dirt here. But I disagree that you can get younger drinkers to buy that wine by leaning on luxury. Like, do you know who doesn't give a shit about luxury? Gen Z, who is entering the real world with less spending power and more debt than any other American generation. So I think waxing poetic about vintages and luxury isn't sexy anymore. I could go on and on, but I'll digress before I get too worked up.
Well, Pickett has written a lot of follow-up books to Sideways, I should mention, and none of them has had the same impact as that first book. So no need to get too worked up there, Nick. He's just one of many voices. Hey, thanks to all you listeners who follow the Four Top on social media and comment on our question of the week each week. And we recently asked, could reusable bottles be the future of wine packaging? So, Nick, what did we hear from our listeners?
Yeah, we got a couple of comments on that post. So Elevation Custom Crush writes, the future is the past. Here's to hoping we can find our way back to common sense packaging. So I love that sentiment. And then Bernice Vineyards also chimed in saying, bottles are reusable by definition. Not all wineries currently have the capacity for the cleaning/sanitation of used bottles. New businesses are springing up to do just that. It must be the way forward if wineries plan to move towards sustainability.
Well, they get at the heart of the issue, wineries' capacity for cleaning and sanitation. But luckily, as we learned previously in the Four Top, companies like Ravino are stepping in to make that easier. And I am super excited about the future of reusable wine bottles. So thanks for chiming in, folks. And we look forward to hearing from you all when we post our next question of the week. So, Nick, it's time for our dessert course. And I think, even though Ruby couldn't join us for the main part of the episode, I think we can pull her in for dessert. What do you think about that?
Yes, I would love if she joined us for dessert.
Ruby, get on over here.
Oh,
where
hey.
Have you been?
Oh my gosh, you would not believe the week that I've had. I'm currently at my tech rehearsal for my show that opens tomorrow, which is the day that this podcast airs.
Woohoo! And you've been rehearsing not just for one play, but how many plays?
That's correct. I myself am in 12 plays. I should preface and say that they are each 1 minute long. But yeah, I'm participating in something called Gone in 60. It's an international 1 minute theater festival.
Okay, so we actually have a good amount of listeners in New York. So can they come watch your show?
You can absolutely come watch my show. I will find a way to get the link to you guys. I'm sending you all the link now.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so it's at a place called The Tank.
All right.
The GI60 International 1 Minute Theater Festival, 20th anniversary. This looks fantastic.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It's really fun. Yeah, so it's May 15th through 19th. The 15th through the 18th are 7 p.m. shows, and then Sunday the 19th is a 3 p.m. show. It's 60 1-minute plays. You'll laugh, you'll cry. The actors are fantastic, if I do say so myself, and it's a really fun time.
I think Catherine and I will only cry because we can't make it.
Yeah.
Well, there is also, I guess I could plug this also. There's the option to buy live stream tickets, so you can watch it live on YouTube. And then also after the show, GI60's video editor, who is maybe also me, will split up all of the plays and then post them individually so that there'll be new videos on YouTube that you can watch anytime.
Oh, great. Who's maybe also you.
Maybe.
Well, I'm going to figure out how to live stream. That sounds perfect.
That's
so
awesome.
I can do that through the website?
Yeah, when you're buying tickets, there's an option to see it at the theater or get the live stream link.
Oh, I'm definitely doing that.
Sweet.
And so are the 61-minute plays related at all, or are they just kind of all different playwrights and just at any theme?
Yeah, they're all different playwrights, different themes. So this year is a little different. Usually it's just 51-minute plays from the past year. But this year, because it's the 20th anniversary, we're doing 40 plays from the vault, so like classics throughout the past 20 years that are fan favorites, and 20 new plays.
Oh, cool.
Fantastic. Well, we're sorry you couldn't join us for the episode, but we're really thrilled that you are having this amazing experience. It sounds super cool.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about it and exhausted.
If you're a real fan of the podcast, you will go to one of these shows if you're in New York.
That's right.
A
Yeah,
true
real
test
fans
of your
only.
fandom. Yeah.
And give Ruby a gigantic bouquet, a gigantic arrangement afterward.
Or a bottle
Yeah,
of
standing
wine.
ovation.
Or a
Or
gigantic
a wine.
Jeroboam Methuselah or Nebuchadnezzar Salmanzar of wine at the end.
That's all I want.
If it's a chilled red.
Only children.
All right. Well, this has been the Four Top Podcast. I am our executive producer, Catherine Cole.
I'm our producer, Nick Toole.
Keelan King is our sound supervisor and the composer and performer of our fantabulous theme music. Please visit our website, thefourtop.org, to learn more about us, listen to back episodes, and learn how to sponsor our work.
If you have not already subscribed to The Four Top on iTunes or Spotify or YouTube Music, please do so, and please leave us a rating.
That's right. And from Austin, where all I've seen so far is a hopping, drinking, and dining culture, this is Catherine signing out.
From my recording den comprised of couch cushions and pillows, this is Nick signing off. And Ruby, we hope you are breaking a leg up there on stage right now.
Yeah. Brava.
Brava.